The camera?
Yes.
Oh.
And they may have heard that. Welcome to another live broadcast of the relationship series. My name is Gina Spataro, and this is my brother. I always point to the wrong direction because it's
That
like
way.
mirrored. Yes, my brother
Over
Sam
there?
Spataro.
No, you're over there. Oh, wait, are you over here?
Yeah.
There you are.
Um, Tonight's topic is a little bit different than what we normally talk about, but it is very relevant. And it is knowing when to leave a relationship. We definitely talk about, how to mend, how to fix, how to incorporate something so that you can reignite relationships. But sometimes you got to know some signs and when just to go your own way, share love, and bless, right? But before we start, please support our channel by hitting the like button, notification bell, and subscribe. It will help us immensely. Sam, how's your week been?
Pretty good. Yeah, work has been good. Feeling great. Family's good.
Excellent.
Eating good. Drinking good. And living good. Oh, it's great. I just had a coaching call prior to this, so I'm all ready and wired up to go here. How
Good.
about you, G?
Very good week. Very, very good week. Lots of to-dos, but a lot of check marks along the way. So definitely getting more organized, prioritizing, etc., which has helped me organize myself. I'm telling you, the one thing that I rely on right now is my planner. I plan everything. I organize everything. I need to see it. I'm a visual person, so thank goodness for that. And that one's called the Passion Planner. It's a great goal-setting purpose, and also helps you refocus for the next month, which I love. So that's what I've been up to.
Who's it? Is it done by somebody or you just found it?
So it was recommended. It's done by this lady in the States. She started her little business and it's flourished into a passion of hers, right? It's called a passion planner for a reason. I
Oh,
love it.
cool.
I really do love it. Yeah, there's things in it like,
Like, what do you find differently about that than a normal planner?
so this one here has quotes, and it also has spots for like this week's focus, good things that happened, personal to-do list, work to-do list, and it prioritizes in errands, priority, and top priorities. And then there's a spot for writing something along the lines of space for infinite possibilities. I love it. But then
Cool.
at the end of the month, you have your check-in, and you have to write down things like what was the most memorable part of the month, biggest lesson. Anyway,
That's
it's great.
cool.
I love it. I love it. But let's dive into this week's topic.
Let's dive in, divers.
Yes. So, when to know how to call it quits in a relationship. And I think we're going to talk about one topic tonight, and then we will expand next week on a different one based on the same topic. So different subheadings. So tonight, Sam wants to talk about if you're incompatible. What does that mean to you, Sam, if you're incompatible with somebody?
Well, I really think what that means is, if we could look in the form of a relationship, the beginning phase of a relationship, the incompatibilities usually don't show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of blindsided by all the external, we can call them facades or whatever they might be. And they kind of take over all the other sort of things that you might not see yet. And so as time starts to progress, there's little things that happen along the way where you start to maybe question, or maybe your gut starts to say, well, you know what, that didn't feel very good, or your intuition starts to speak to you. And so what that's really saying to you is, when it comes to incompatibility is there a conflict of morale? Is there a conflict of, beliefs and maybe this matter or something that we're discussing, or maybe it's worldviews, like, especially with something that's going on right now with that terrible tragedy in the US, or maybe even with the coronavirus, how to handle finances, the incompatibility of how to handle the children, our jobs, who's going to go back to work now, who's not. And really what it comes down to is you're almost on opposite spectrums of where do you go from here? You're presented this problem and you're either on the same page or all of a sudden you realize you're on different spectrums of the planet and you never seem to come to some sort of reasonable, I don't even want to call it compromise, but some reasonable decision where you both feel like you've walked away with it without giving less of yourself. So incompatibility to me is where you start to question whether your morale is the same, your beliefs are the same, where the direction of where you want to go is the same. And that's when the relationship can really start to break down, because what happens a lot of the times is that people never address it. And it starts to compound the incompatibilities with the different areas of lives. And most of us, we're not taught how to be great communicators. So we still, a lot of the times will suppress a lot of the things within us, because let's face it, I mean, I think everybody, when it comes to mental health, has a way where they can improve. And to me, mental health is always seeing things in a way where it's empowerment. There's always a way to find a solution to the problem. There's always a way to grow from it, to appreciate, to understand a different person's perspective. And they also understand your own, but unfortunately, for the majority of us, that isn't the common norm. So when it comes to incompatibility, I think really what it comes down to is this one unique thing. And it's when you're presented with the problem, how are your emotional needs met? The things that are important to you, where you felt like you were understood, where you felt like, your partner was willing to sit and listen and combine the things that they had with you as well, and try to find a way to move forward in a common goal and a common perspective, right? So a lot of the times the incompatibility clashes when we're presented with these specific situations. And I call it the compounding effect. It starts with something small, it compounds into something bigger. And the way our brains are naturally wired is you never forget. And that's when all the negative emotions start to pile on, and you could start to see the end before it even appears. And so my question to you is, you've been in multiple relationships like myself. And obviously a lot of them have ended because you're in a new relationship. But in those relationships where they did end, at what point did you see where that incompatibility was it was the end?
So I have to go back. Okay, I have dated, yes. I haven't been in many long-term relationships, truthfully, too, out of my lifespan. But in dating and getting to know somebody, I think it's very sequential to your age, your compatibility. So when you're younger, what you deem compatible will differ as to when you get older. Because obviously when I was younger, things that mattered to me are a little bit different than now, right? So I would think a little bit differently. However, that being said, for me, when I looked for a boyfriend, I was definitely looking for someone who held the same morals and values as I did. Didn't have to be identical, but very similar. A moral and value for good health, well-being, ambition, things that I wouldn't tolerate as an adult as I did in my, younger years, in my 20s. So I think it's very timeline effective. When you're younger, it's the looks, it's the sexual attraction. Yes, even as you get older, the same things apply, but you add on to that list. Someone who is ambitious, someone who possibly holds masculine traits, someone who is able to fix things around the house without calling someone and hiring someone to do it. Someone that is complementary to the feminine. Those are the things that I looked for. However, like I said, It's very specific, I think, to your age, truthfully, what you deem and want to be compatible with, if that makes sense. If you look back, what you looked for in your early teens or 20s when, everything changed, your hormones, and you were interested in women and what you looked for, than what you would look for when you're older, someone who is nurturing, etc. The first thing you look for is sexual cues, sexual attraction, right? So the only way you realize if you are incompatible, if you date at a younger age, is if you grow together. And then values start changing, beliefs start changing. You start growing to a person that you didn't anticipate to grow into, or have certain ideals or thoughts, and they change from that person's. And it could even be religious beliefs, political beliefs. It could be your well-being. So I think, like you said, the honeymoon phase is what it is. It is an exchange of chemicals that make you happy and excited. But when reality sets in and you really search for the meaning of whether or not you two choose to stay together, it goes a little bit deeper than the skin. So those are my thoughts. But I also do believe that it's through experience as well, what you choose to learn as what you are compatible with, and the type of person you are too, right? You learn who you are if you're an A-type personality person, and someone who might be with someone who's a little bit more aloof. That could be very problematic as well. So, but those are some factors I think that are very important. And like we said before, which we are going to do a topic on, are your negotiables and non-negotiables. You learn what those are as you get older, and you learn who you are compatible with and who you are not. And there's certain things that just become very, very clear.
Those are some really, really, really good points, G. And I think really when it comes down to incompatibility, it reminds me of battle.
Mm-hmm.
Battle is either one where you're both on the same side of the fence, or you're in competition with one another. And when it comes to relationships where, you become so incompatible that it forces you to be at the end,
Mm-hmm.
is you really get lost along the way on, what really drives you in the first place. So what makes you compatible is always being open-minded to the other. Right? It's always that voice of reason, and basically getting out of your own way. I mean, we should never have, negotiations with ourselves to the things that matter.
Yeah.
But we also need to understand this. It's, most of us are willing to do whatever it takes to make our businesses succeed. Let's take it Elon Musk, for example. I mean, he's a genius. He's done things that, are unconceivable, and that most people would have made fun of years ago, to say that it would be an impossibility. But yet he achieves the unimaginable. But yet his relationships fail after fail after fail, and the whole thing is they all end in turmoil. And so, at what part of that process you realize where the incompatibility is playing a key role?
Yes.
What is driving it, to that part that is always having that common pattern to the end. And, I think really what it comes down to with us as human beings is to always understand that, we are emotionally driven always, until hurt gets in the way. And that's when we become the most incompatible. That's when we start to put up the roadblocks. That's when the relationship starts to go down the wrong way, because you're no longer putting the other needs at par with your own. It's
Right.
yours versus theirs. And, it's a really slippery slope, because you just invest so much time into it, and it's just like anything else. I mean, 95% of businesses fail. Why do 5% succeed? It's the same thing with relationships. Yeah, the majority will continue on, but it doesn't mean that they're working.
Right.
Right.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Incompatibility is really a process in which, you get to a point in the relationship where, that equilibrium is offset. So, and your inevitability of the end is just a day, a fight, a moment away, an experience away.
Yeah, and I think too, going back to Elon Musk and why his relationships fail, there's a little part of me that believes that like attracts like sometimes. And I mean, if you have you ever really sat down and listened to his conversations with interviewers?
Oh, I'd rather watch paint dry.
Right. So I mean, that's the thing. Is he looking for very similar people um, who lack certain skills? Do you know what I mean? And when you combine those two people, I mean, if you don't have the tools to navigate a relationship or, um, any sort of, breaking a pattern, it's a repeat cycle, right? But I think learning to be compatible with someone is also um, important because if you're choosing someone and they become a part of your life, it's also understanding to respect opinions. It's when opinions and thoughts and beliefs are not matched and people don't hold space for the differences, I think can be very problematic as well. Um, but my question to you is it okay, let's just say a year down the road, that a couple realizes that they are not compatible?
Of course, it's okay.
Right. And because we all know that the only things that exist in this world are short term and long term, right? So you can be with someone for a short term basis or a long term basis because we know forever doesn't ever exist. And it's getting comfortable with the notion of some people are going to enter your life that you are not compatible with, and that might be a short term basis. And there might be people that you spend a lot of time with that take up a huge chunk of your lifespan, and not guaranteeing that it is, the rest of your lifespan. It's just knowing that they were placed there for certain lessons, teachable moments. And the incompatibilities also teach you a little bit about you and where your growth lies as well. Because we all have our idiosyncrasies that sometimes need to be brought to the forefront, and understanding why certain relationships aren't working out. And it may not be the other person, it could potentially be you.
It's always the two.
It's either or, either or.
No,
But
I
what are your
agree.
thoughts?
No, I agree. I think in closing, really what it comes down to is, relationships are much like an adventure.
Mhm.
You know, you kind of think you might, have an idea of what's ahead, but
Mhm.
there's always uncertainties along the way, right? And
100%.
if there's one thing I've learned in my journey in life, the most important thing is, what does it mean?
Mhm.
What does it mean to you? What are the specific questions you need to be asked to get really empowering motives and ideals on, really making the most of the situation? Because let's face it, with everything that's just happened in our world, and most of us can all relate with the coronavirus and everything that's going on in the States, our brains are more than likely, for the majority, naturally always swaying to what's wrong,
Mm.
just without us even being conscious of it, because that's just the way we are wired. So if we really want to find a way to be compatible, if we really want to take less focus on the incompatibilities, and as being near the end is, how do you create a new beginning?
Mhm.
How do you find a way to devise some compatibility? And the only way you do that is if you ask yourself very specific questions in order to find those answers. Our brains are always looking for the ways to be incompatible. Our brains are always looking for the way out.
Mhm.
But how do we turn that around? And the thing is, once we realize how to turn it around, our focus changes, our
Mhm.
beliefs changes, the questions that we ask ourselves changes, and ultimately our results will change, and then the direction of our lives change. So maybe some of you are in this situation right now, and you're finding, especially with what's going on right now, where you're spending so much time together, You may be either finding that you're really compatible with everything that's going on, or maybe you're really at a dilemma where your incompatibilities are really taking over. And I just want you to take a pause for a moment and pull back and just really just think about what we just talked about. And maybe you get a piece of paper and just write something down. And you know, if the relationship is something of importance to you, and maybe you've used all the tools that you have, well, take some of the things that we've shared here, and maybe it can help you and change the direction of your future.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you can't drag someone along your purpose in life if they're not willing to be that complement. And you have to really decide, you know, does this person feel like a weight or like a feather, right?
And I don't know enough about these people's relationship, but Bill Gates, and is it Melinda or Belinda Gates?
I'm not sure.
Anyways, they to me seem like they have a very ebb and flow relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he started Microsoft, she started working there, they met, and now they have the Bill and Belinda Gates Foundation going around the world trying to do, you know, wonderful things. It just seems like they're very compatible.
Complementary,
They're
yes.
very complementary because their missions are very same. Their interests are very much the same. Their personalities are somewhat very similar, and their desires and everything else that we talk about almost seem like they're on the same trajectory where you don't get that clashing.
Yes.
Right. So it's very important if you are in that stage right now where you're finding the incompatibilities are overtaking you, is just take a pause, get out of your own way, get out of your partner's way, and just spend a day, spend a few hours, and just go really deep and try to figure out if you can get a handle on this, or book a coach. Like I have a coach that I go to every 2 weeks to discuss things that are going on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need a mentor, you need somebody that can help you through you know, hardships and you know, especially with things that you can't resolve yourself.
Right. Yep, I agree 100%. And on that note, is there anything else you want to say, Sam, before we log
No,
off? Okay.
I'm good.
On that note, I just want to end with understanding your intuition. um, if your relationship feels right, you will know. And you have to try and follow that gut as well. If you are constantly in anxiety or on edge, or questioning the relationship, then you really have to dig deep and question, how long you want to continue those feelings as well, because it's not fair that you bring someone along for that ride as well. So on that note, this is the relationship series, always talking about the matters of the heart and mind. And we will see all of you next week. Ciao for now.